this event is being recorded. I'm very pleased to start today with opening remarks from State Secretary Lucy Katrine Sunde-Eidem. Lucy Katrine has been State Secretary for the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Iselin Nybø, since January. We look forward to hearing how the government's policy for trade and the fairly new export action plan can contribute to unleash the potential of the life sciences.
Good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure and privilege to open this year's Life Science Cluster Day. Thank you to the Life Science Cluster who makes this important event happen, despite the restricted circumstances. This year's digital platform demonstrates both our willingness and ability to adapt and the seriousness of the situation. We are in the middle of a global health crisis. The corona pandemic has hit us all hard. Millions are infected. Thousands have died. Unfortunately, the numbers are still rising. The pandemic has truly demonstrated the important role of the life science and the life science industry in our society. The corona crisis has also led to a dramatic fall in a global demand for goods and services. We see disruptions of global value chains, lockdowns, restrictions on exports, problems with logistics and transportation of goods and people. Even before the crisis, we saw an international trading system under pressure by rising protectionism and barriers to trade. These two challenges, the major health issues and increasing trade barriers, are connected. They are connected because, on the one hand, solving our health challenges is really down to business. Whether we like it or not, we cannot find a cure for COVID-19 or cancer, care for more elders with fewer hands, or save the planet without business who create products and services that help us tackle the big challenges of our time. And the good news are that our life science industry is taking a lead in tackling many of our health challenges that we are facing. EpiGuard, Made for Movement, and many more, they are all examples showing the Norwegian life science industry are following new opportunities in the market and improving the life quality of thousands at the same time. On the other hand, business rely on trade. The life science industry is a global industry. The potential for growth is strongly dependent on access to markets and value chain in other countries. In Norway, we have leading research communities. We have highly competent workforce, free access to excellent education, and an ever-improving cooperation between healthcare providers, research communities, and business. This puts the Norwegian life science industry in a great position to become an important player on the international scene. The Norwegian government will do what we can to give our life science industry and all other export industries the best possible conditions to develop both their product but also to access international markets. Based on our belief that we need both government and private actors to solve the world's health problems, that the Norwegian government has entered a joint investment with the Gates Foundation and other countries and actors in the Global Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation to fund the development of a vaccine against the coronavirus and to prevent further outbreaks of the epidemic and pandemics. Last year, we presented a white paper on the health industry. It presented our policies to promote more profitable jobs and better, more sustainable health and care service in Norway. This adds to our general priority of education, research and innovation, which also affect the life science industry. We have made it easier to start and develop business in Norway, and we have made it easier to invest. We have increased public funding of business and R&D and innovation. We are also fine-tuning our policy instruments for business R&D and innovation, Innovation Norway, the Research Council, and many others in order to make them more effective and drive more innovations, new jobs, and new growth. The life science industry is an active user of all of these instruments and puts forward many sound and innovative projects. We are also fine-tuning on our export supporting agencies and export policies. Last month, we presented a new action plan for export with new initiatives for export promotion. And our aim is to assist Norwegian industry in regaining lost and capturing new international markets. Following up the plan, we want to build a new strategic cooperation with the Norwegian industry to promote trade. We have created a temporary export panel of business representatives that will help us build this cooperation. In general, we continue to work hard every day for favorable trade conditions through the EEA agreement, our most important trading agreement, also for the life science industry in the World Trade Organization, by supporting international activities and by negotiating free trade agreements, currently with China, India, the UK, and many others. The life science industry is already an important industry in Norway. All our efforts are founded on a belief that it is also a great potential here to give us more profitable jobs, wealth and growth through export, and not least to be part of the solution to the global challenges of our time. In fact, we have the entire value chain from educators, researchers, practitioners, entrepreneurs, investors, businessmen and women and government right here at this event. So keep up the good work, keep investing in life, in good health, good jobs, and a better world. So will I and the rest of the government. Good luck and have a great Life Science Cluster Day. Thank you.
Hanne Mette Dyrli Christensen is known to most of you. She is the CEO of the Life Science Cluster, and her diverse experience is ranging from startups to Innovation Norway. Hanne Mette will present the potential of the life science industry in Norway, our strengths across silos.
Thanks a lot, Lotte. Again, welcome to all of you that are joining us today. As we mentioned during the pre-conference talks this morning, we had planned for this meeting at the 24th of April with the same great program as we have today. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it physically now either due to the situation, but we experience that people are testing out new platforms, looking at opportunities and ways to actually make things happen, looking at how to use different kinds of digital platforms to reach the same goals as we have. So it spurs some creativity also in finding out how to reach the people that you are actually targeting in the coffee breaks. So I urge and encourage all of you, reach out to people, make that phone call. The worst thing that happens is that people say no, and then you're actually not worse off than you were if you didn't try. So we look forward to today's program. We have national and international speakers, and we are also having topics across life science industry areas. We have a focus on making life science and the potential for value creating jobs and export more visible on the national scene. This year we have had more than 25 events and also several small and large projects involving several of the companies. We have explored one-on-one partnering platforms, virtual platforms, and also encourage you to let us know if you find platforms or ways of collaborating that works particularly well. We are interested. We have collaborated with sister clusters and external partners, both nationally and internationally, to achieve some of those goals that we have as a cluster. Next slide, Iselin. So I will take you through some of the insights about the cluster and also about this area. As we know, life sciences offers solutions for all the great challenges of mankind. We are working across silos, so both health, the marine sector, agricultural and industrial sectors are areas where life sciences play a crucial role. Next. The vision of the Life Science Cluster is to support sustainable industry development within the life science area. We have a mission of creating more jobs through strengthening collaboration and knowledge sharing between and within industrial, academic, private and public sectors. And this mission is just as important and even more important during these digital days. How do we really achieve the same dynamics as we did a year ago on this picture when people are sitting on different locations? Next, please. The goal of the Life Science Cluster is to create 5,000 new jobs for the industry within 2023. This might sound as a quite high goal. We will come back to agreeing both yes and no. It's a high goal, but the potential is actually a lot higher if we as a nation choose to focus on knowledge-based industries. Next. So some insights about the cluster. Many of you know also before that we have a board of directors and an administration with 3 people and 2 in-hired consultants. In addition, we also have a strategic committee that joins the board in all the strategic discussions through the year. So we have approximately 4 meetings each year with both the strategic committee and the board, and those comprise of members of the cluster. We have 8 working groups spanning different areas. Startup and finance to the right are areas that we are collaborating with other partners. We are collaborating with incubators, and we have a lot of resources, both nationally and internationally, that can support companies. The needs of each company in the early phase is often very different. So we are focusing a lot on one-on-one dialogues with expertise to really understand the needs of each company and support them in making the right connections. When companies, when industries grow, they need more infrastructure. As we have seen on the incubator side, it's not necessary for each company to build everything alone. Sharing infrastructure, sharing equipment, even sharing some insights, talent, and supporting each other with expertise is interesting. And now through the pandemic, when things are developing at a pace that is unprecedented, we also see that these insights on incubator level actually can be transferred to the product development and to production levels. there can be sharing of equipment infrastructure to actually make things happen faster. We're also focusing on communication, showing people all the interesting opportunities within life sciences, and also on competence and education. And many of these areas will be covered in today's program. Next, please. So currently we are approximately 85 companies, members across industry areas. And the members span from large companies to companies started this year, to institutes, to universities, hospitals, and supplier industries. And all of these players are important to build a knowledge base for a new life science industry in Norway. Next. So this is another way of showing the companies in development stage. This map has gained a lot of interest from the investors in our community. It gives much more information than just a pure logo map. So on the middle of this map is market launch. So the companies to the right are companies that are on the market. The companies to the left are companies in development stage. And of course, it's not all black and white. Some of the companies to the right also have new projects in development. But we do see that there are different investors interested in different areas. On the left-hand side, if you draw a line through the companies up to Vaccibody, you can see that many of those are health type of companies. They need a lot of capital. Below that, you have marine and agricultural sectors. And to the right hand corner, you can also see some of the contract manufacturing companies that are starting to build in Norway, like Curida, Catapult Life Science, Diatec Monoclonals, and others. These represent different segments of the industry which are important, and they also represent different investment opportunities. So if we think about all these logos as playing cards, we can turn those playing cards around and see which investors are actually interested in which companies, and then start making new connections. This is a very interesting way of working. So we see that, for instance, for Curida, they have investors in the company, investors in the building, which looks much more like the areas Norwegian investors have invested in before. So attracting investors from different sides of the industry to the life sciences, showing the opportunities, is very exciting. And as you know, on the upper right-hand corner, we have listed also PHARMAQ. They are part of Zoetis, so they are a large international corporation now, but they are actually also started out in the bottom left-hand corner. They are there to show how we, with a strategic thinking, can try to support the small companies into growing into large companies with export from Norway, production in Norway. Next, please. And here also are some updated industry cluster insights. As you know, we have companies from different sectors of the sector in the cluster. Some of them are in more than one of the sectors. Of organization types, we see that we have large corporations, the multinational corporations, we have growth companies with product on the market, and also startups. The last sector has grown quite a lot over the last year. And also we see that we have CROs, specialist advisors, and suppliers, which is a very important part of the industry. In this industry, as also in the oil industry, a lot of insight is actually residing in this sector. And if they can support to the blue segment here, they can also support an international market and is an export segment in themselves. Next, please. So many of our companies are working to meet sustainability development goals. Life below water, life on land, good health and well-being are maybe the three target areas that our companies are focusing on. But as you see, many of the other areas here also are relatable to our industry. Of course, zero hunger with food production, smarter use of raw materials, but also the collaboration, gender equality in industry and other areas are important. Next, please. So, over to the larger picture. Why life science? We who work in the industry, of course, we are excited to see the opportunities, but we would also like to share these insights and share some figures that describe how life science can be a part of Norway's future export industries. So first of all, life sciences are creating new solutions to many of the great challenges of mankind. That in itself is definitely a reason for doing more life science-based innovations and development. But secondly, also, we would like to transform these solutions into jobs, value creation, and export. And the way to do that is to make sure that these companies, many of these companies, have the opportunity of choosing Norway as a country to establish production. So in today's program, we have a lot of companies, both in the small companies with production in Norway, as you will see. Next, please. The picture to the left shows Norway's export mix in 2018. Approximately 55% was related to oil and gas. If we see the picture to the right, this is Sweden. And as you see, they have a mixture of industries, which is much more equal and much more robust. So of course, we are extremely lucky to have had the oil industry. We have had people with foresight, with long value creation in mind, and who have governed these resources to the best of Norway and our society. But now, as we are looking for the new industry mix, we cannot wait for another oil, and I don't think anyone says that anymore either. What we are aiming for is actually to let the other sectors grow into a patchwork like the one we see in Sweden, which is equal to what we see in Denmark, UK, US, Netherlands, Germany, France. All those countries that we usually compare ourselves to have this kind of a patchwork. And our belief is that life science industries can be a solid part of that patchwork in Norway's future export mix. Next, please. This is a slide with a little bit of content, but I will focus on those three red circles. The one to the left shows value creation per employee in the health industry and in the average of Norwegian export industry without oil and gas. We are using the health industry as an example because this is where we have these figures. And as you see, the value creation per head is 1.5 times higher in the health industry compared to general industries. And on the right side, you can see that diagnostics and drugs are those areas with the definitely highest value creation per head. And these are the areas that we count in as our focus in the life science cluster. We also believe that these figures, this value creation per head, also are comparable to other life science sectors, but these figures we don't have yet. But definitely we see that sectors with a scientific base, a knowledge-based industry, very often has high value creation per head and a good contribution to exports. Next, please. So something about the growth potential. The Norwegian bioeconomy, including health, has a growth potential towards 2050. This graph is constituting of different sources. We know that there's a goal for the marine sector to grow 5 times within 2050. To reach those goals, you need to make sure that the fish are healthy. You need to make sure they have good feed. This is life science. You also need to make sure that you do not just throw away that 1/3 of the weight of the fish that is not the fillet. This is a circular economy thinking and sustainability thinking, and constitutes new market opportunities in itself. We also have new sources from algae, from kelp, etc., where we see that there will be new products in the future. Also on the agricultural side, we see that those technologies and solutions that can support the agricultural industries and farming in the future, if you find solutions that are supporting Norwegian farmers, those solutions will also be export industries in themselves or export articles in themselves. Also within the health sector, if the growth is at the same pace that it has been the last 10 years, it will actually by itself double within 2030. So setting a goal of 3 times increase by 2050, it's actually a very reachable goal. Next slide, please. So also back to the point about managing of resources. Circular economy, sustainability thinking, using the resources optimally has been an increasing focus over the last years. The figure to the right is picked from an article that was published last year. The middle sector of the triangle or the pyramid says first biomaterials on the right hand side. So that's the current situation. So the first biomaterials, that can be wood, that can be fish fillets, that can be meat. But then, of course, as many of the players that you will meet afterwards also know, is that there's actually a quite large value creation potential with the remains of the product also. You can go down in the value triangle, create biogas and heat by burning it, but you can also choose to go up in the value creation, make food, feed, and also specialty molecules or pharmaceutical molecules from or products from the raw material that you have. Turning to the left side of the pyramid is how we look at the opportunities moving into the future. So the thinking is that less of the bioenergy or heat part of the triangle will be present, but we will look into the opportunity of increasing the higher value creation use of the material. So for fish, for instance, just sending the remains for burning or for bioenergy, that will of course release some of the potential, but looking into the opportunity of taking care of different parts of the raw material, processing it further, and then leave the rest for heat, for instance, and energy, will make sure that we harvest more of the values. And this is very similar across sectors. We see potential also for collaboration across the silos in this area. So next, please. So back to the growth potential. The map to the right I have shown you once before. It is a map of pharmaceutical exports by country in 2018. The export is shown as a purple pill. The countries are exposed approximately where they are in the map. And as you see, for the finished products, exports are at the highest from Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, UK, Ireland, US, those companies that we are very often comparing ourselves with. You see China and India are also large, but not as large as expected. On the active pharmaceutical ingredients or the raw material side, it's a bit different, but on the pharmaceutical finished product side, this is the picture. And you can also see that Denmark, they are the same number of people as us and comparable in many other areas. They have 20 times higher exports than we have. We have been lucky to have oil, but now as we are transitioning to a new stage, we can actively choose to pursue some of these opportunities. And of course, Denmark has been working with this area for many, many years, but still many of the opportunities, the science, the scientific base is very similar. So we definitely have a potential for increasing our presence in this area several folds. Next, please. This also was Norwegian exports in 2018. We had 999 billion NOK in exports, approximately 54% oil and gas related, and then approximately 46% mainland economy related, including fisheries. So fisheries passed 100 billion NOK last year. But also the health industry, which has not been in the focus in the same way, actually did have a size of approximately 23 billion. So the opportunity, as you see, is quite high if we choose to focus on the life science industries, including within both the marine side, the health industry side, and also the agricultural side, and turning these into industrial sectors for Norway. Next, please. So back to some of the sustainability goals. As I mentioned, we are covering many of the sustainability goals through our cluster. We have a focus. The first picture that you saw was from a conference we had in December last year, which was called Invest in Sustainability, and where we looked at metrics for actually showing that you are delivering on sustainability goals and also that you are actually improving. This is how we are used to see annual reports for companies on other financial metrics, and Nasdaq, for instance, that we collaborated with on that event, and others are developing ways of measuring how you respond to different sustainability goals. So this is our choice on looking at gender equality. We have a focus on giving talent equal opportunities to unleash the full potential of Norwegian life science industry. That includes gender equality and also diversity, that we give students with talent equal opportunities. In 2015, Investinor went through their investments and saw that only approximately 1% of the tech companies had either a female CEO, chairman, or entrepreneur. I think that the picture is somewhat similar still. I was in Boston 2 years ago and listened to a company presentation of biotech startups. And in that presentation round, approximately 1/3 of the company CEOs were women. So even if we are actually a very equal country, some areas are still lagging behind. There is a difference between the sexes, but it's not like this. So we have to do something. We have been looking through our startup companies in the cluster, and we see that approximately 17 of these companies have female CEO, chairman, or entrepreneur. One of these is Vaccibody, as you well know, and that was the highest valued deal in Norwegian biotech history. So this definitely also shows that these companies do not differ in quality from male-only companies. So we have a focus on supporting, of course, all those companies that we have that exist, but also support taking care of those opportunities that we so far might have lost. We have also had a focus in our events on gender balance. We counted up now before this conference, and we actually saw that we do have a 50% gender balance in all our meetings in general. We had 4 meetings with just one sex represented, or one gender represented, 3 with just women and 1 with just men. So this is definitely possible. So I encourage other clusters, other podcasts, other arenas to actually start measuring the gender balance they are showcasing. This is might work as a wake-up call for us, and then we can start seeing where are the differences appearing. It's no single way to solve this, but I think putting light on it is definitely one way of starting to make changes. Next, please. So this is my last slide. Being part of a cluster is even more important now in these corona times than it has ever been before. People are sitting alone at home offices and using your network, using national and international partners is more important than ever. So dare to ask the people you know who have networks or people that you need to get in touch with. That might be investors. Remember that equality and respect is something that always pays forward in the long run. And the pay it forward culture is also very good. If someone do you a favor, instead of trying to pay back, try to pay forward. Do someone else a favor in return. In this way, we will create a very positive community of helping each other. Of course, all of the companies are in some way competitors, but also we are part of a team. So this is on the employee side, on the company side, on the cluster side, on the Norwegian side, on the Nordic side, and on the global scene. So collaborate when we can and compete when we must. Think about ourselves as extended teams. Of course, your company is a team, but you are also collaborating with people to make larger things happen. And also, never be afraid to ask. The worst thing that happens is a no, and then you're not worse off than you were before. So reach out and use your networks, and don't be afraid to use us to get in touch with new people. Next, please. So that was my introductory speak. So I look very much forward to the rest of the day and listening to all the exciting projects, companies, university, thoughts on how to bring the life science sectors forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Henriette. The next post on our program is a greeting from Victoria Marie Evensen, Vice Mayor for Business Development and Public Ownership in the City of Oslo. In this pre-recorded message, Victoria is giving us an insight in Oslo Kommune's policy for growth in the life science sector.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today. Video conferences have become our new normal, and I am glad you have all tuned in to hear about the potential of the life sciences in Oslo and Norway. My name is Victoria Marie Evensen, and I am the Vice Mayor for Business Development and Public Ownership in the City of Oslo. In the City of Oslo, We believe that future value creation will take place in knowledge-intensive businesses and the innovative ways they take advantage of new materials, technologies, and processes. To meet this future, Oslo and Norway must become better at transforming knowledge into innovative products and services. We see exciting potential in the life sciences, which is well poised in finding new innovative solutions to many of the challenges our society faces. Even before the pandemic, we saw the need for solutions for an aging population, climate and environmental change, and a need for new jobs in a time of rapid technological development and change. To address these challenges, we need to collaborate. This might seem obvious, but we think there's great potential for increased and improved collaboration in Oslo and in Norway when it comes to identifying and mobilizing exciting projects and companies with high potential. There are exciting solutions being developed right now at our universities, research institutions, at small and medium-sized companies and larger enterprises. They are in various stages of development. While some might be almost ready to go commercial, others are ready to scale. We want to help harness this potential and address the needs of not only the research and development projects, but also the startups and scale-ups that are already established or might need help in getting to the next step in their development timeline. Additionally, the need for both public and private investments and grants for those starting ups, for those scaling, and for additional research and development activities in existing businesses is something we recognize and are examining closely. We think there is room for improvement. Specifically, and in addressing economic growth and job development, the City of Oslo is developing innovation districts to advance and progress innovation ecosystems. And in Oslo Science City, which launched this year, is Norway's first innovation district where health and life sciences will have a prominent role. Innovation districts facilitate the creation of new ideas and make them profitable, and support metropolitan economics by growing jobs in ways that leverage their distinct economic attributes. The potential of innovation districts is very exciting. In Oslo Science City, we have the University of Oslo, the new Life Science Building, Oslo Science Park, hospital, various research institutions, and several clusters and incubators in this area. Additionally, there are exciting urban development projects in the area, such as FARD and Marienlyst, and the expansions of SINTEF, the hospital, and NGI. The City of Oslo is also supporting industry clusters in sectors such as energy, mobility, finance, and the life sciences. Clusters such as the Life Science Cluster are important organizations that strengthen the interaction and knowledge sharing between and within academia, government, private and public doers. We have also adopted a European R&D strategy to make sure Oslo is participating in Horizon Europe, where opportunities for the life science industry are plentiful. In addition to the EU, there are regional and national public funding programs. In terms of private financing, we see this industry growing in Oslo and Norway, with investors such as Hadian Ventures focusing on opportunities in the life sciences. We have exciting solutions coming from the life sciences in Oslo and Norway in the past decade, and we think there's potential for more success stories that will contribute to economic growth and job development in our country and region. Vaccibody, for example, started out as a research project at the university, and they recently entered into a 1 billion kroner agreement with a company affiliated with the Swiss pharmaceutical giant Roche. Entrepreneur Agnete Fredriksen and a number of investors are now investing in a stock exchange listing on Merkur Market. We hope we can all work together. It is through collaboration that we can make an impact, open new doors, create new options, and develop unforeseen opportunities. We look forward to building this ongoing work with all of you. Thank you.
With us from PHARMAQ, part of Zoetis today, is Edel Anne Nordrus. Edel Anne is Director VMRD PHARMAQ, Biologics, Therapeutics, Diagnostics, and member of the Executive Management Team. She has been in PHARMAQ since 2000 and is accountable for developing new vaccines from ID to commercial products. She's also responsible for new sea lice products. Edel Anne has extensive experience in business and process development and will give us her insight on how to build a profitable industry in Norway and beyond, combining marine needs and health knowledge.
So thank you for inviting me to have a talk about our success story for PHARMAQ. Thank you. First slide, please. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So what are we today? Today, PHARMAQ has a research, development and manufacture of vaccine and therapeutics for aquaculture. We also have a PHARMAQ analytic that focus research, targeting analysis and innovative fish health solution. That means detect the new pathogen, screening of diseases and identify the cause of death. We are also PHARMAQ fish tech that develop or deliver high quality vaccination machine and vaccination service. For those of you who don't know much about how to vaccinate the fish, it's important to know that each fish is injected. It's an injectable vaccine. That is the only way to get long-term protection against the diseases that we vaccinate against. So, PHARMAQ story. Back to 2004, we belonged to Alpharma. Alpharma was a US company at that time, headquartered in New Jersey. In 2004, they decided that we didn't fit to their portfolio and they want to sell us. Of course, they were developing, working, producing antibiotics. We were focused on vaccines. We didn't do it that well at that time. We have just 20% of the market share in salmon vaccine. We have only vaccine and therapeutic for products, and we were 68 people. Compared to today, the revenue, as we expect, 1 billion NOK. We have a market share of salmon vaccine for 70%, and we have different products, and we have increased our employees is 370 globally. So what has been our success factor? When we go back, I think it was important that we focus only on aquaculture health. The people has been, and the employee has been a key. We have a common company values, quality, dynamism, innovation, team spirit, and that gave a very strong company culture. We have a flat organization, so short decision lines, and we were recognized to first to market with solution for several key diseases, and innovation driven with faster pipeline execution. But it's even more. I think that is the reason that we success. We have, at that time in 2004, we have a GMP facility producing our vaccine. We have the knowledge how to document, how to develop and document and register a product. The GMP facility in North Trøndelag was a key for us. And I think also we will recognize and have predictable and consistent product. I think all of these things make that we succeed. Next slide, please. Can you give me the next slide? Thank you. So, innovation has been a core to PHARMAQ success. And new product launch has been the main driver for revenue growth. If you look at the new product launch from 2004 to 2019, I think it's 39 projects that we registered. The main growth in main salmon market is limited due to restriction of expansion, and that is first of all, and I talk about Norway, it's a sea lice problem. We have managed, as you see, and look on to the right on the orange color, it shows new product launch, and this how is important for the growth of PHARMAQ. Next slide, please. I'm sure that most of you have seen this slide, but this is the slide that we, when we are visiting different countries around the world, is what has happened in Norway. And I think it's still somebody in Norway that believe that the farming industry use a lot of antibiotic. That is not true. From 1996 to 1991, it was a huge antibiotic used. And you see it was also very low growth on the production of salmon. But in 1987 was the first to introduce the vaccines. And the main difference, I think, was in 1991 when an oil-based vaccine was introduced. Oil-based, it means that it's an adjuvant used that give long-term protection. And since then, all of the vaccine has been include an adjuvant, an oil-based combination. And as you see, the growth of the production of salmon has increased a lot in Norway. And you see it's almost no antibiotic used in Norway today. Next slide, please. So we are globally. We do the research, development, manufacture vaccine and therapeutic for fish. Of course, salmon is the most important species for us. And 70%, more than 70% of our activities in R&D is salmon or salmonids. We are in Norway, Nordic, Chile, UK, Canada, and the Faroe Islands. So why? Yes, because salmon is a developed market. It's large player. They know how to do farming and how to improve, continuously improve the farming. 30 different large players. To a certain extent, also sea bass, sea bream, that is in Mediterranean. We started there in 1990 and 95. They are not that developed as salmon, but better than the other species that I will talk to later. Then it comes to warm water species, and now I talk about freshwater farming, because freshwater farming is much bigger than compared to farming in the sea. We were established in Vietnam in 2008 and developed vaccine for Pangasius. We have also a lot of different countries in when it comes to vaccine for tilapia. We are in Latin America, we are in Indonesia, many countries. And we are also now in China. I come back to that. But this is a challenge because this is not a development market, it's an emerging market. They have very limited money to invest in the farm. And it's thousands of small farmers. And actually they don't know what caused the problem because it's very limited diagnostic lab to send samples and identify what caused the problem. So we have 25 antigen in our portfolio. We have working with, as you see, eight different species, and we have 35 fish vaccines. And it's also important, our approach is to hands-on problem solving knowledge and experience. I also have to say that even though we have vaccine for Atlantic salmon in different countries, it's not the same vaccine that we can use, for instance, in Norway as we use in Chile. So it's the composition and the diseases is different in the different countries. Next slide, please. So I think our success has also been that we have facility. We have an R&D facility that we can work from ID to final product and to transfer it to Overalla or to our virus facility. We have also, and we have high competent and innovative people. We have the same with the clinical department. Clinical documentation is very comprehensive when it comes to vaccines, and to show, and it's a lot of study that has to be done in fish to document the safety and the efficacy of our vaccine. It's a key, of course, that we have our own production facility. As I said earlier, in the North Trøndelag. And in 2016, we opened up a new facility for virus production, as we see in the picture here. And for those of you who don't know what is the required for that facility, you should visit Kløft and see how it is, because it's no different when it comes to the facility and the requirement to produce fish vaccines compared to human vaccines. It's the same, because it's sterile, injectable vaccine, and to the fish, and we are eating the fish. Understand our customer is important for PHARMAQ, and it's close collaboration and contact with the customers around the world. It's not only the commercial, it's also us in the R&D are also visiting different countries all over the world to find out, visiting farms, finding out what caused the problem, also taking samples back to Norway and find out in our lab what caused what to identify the pathogen that caused the problem. We are allowed by the Norway Mattilsynet to bring in infected material to Norway due to the standard of our lab that we have. Next slide, please. I just want to show you some major innovation success. Microdose, we start to inject 0.2 ml volume in the early phase, or for many years ago. Now we have developed a microdose. The first vaccine was introduced in 2008, and it's 0.05 ml volume that is injected. So why is this so important? It's due to the key advantages of microdose. It reduces fish and side effect and improve yield. That means that it's that it go fast. The fish after vaccination go faster to feed, to start to eat. Okay, it's also for us benefit because it's a lower production cost due to lower volume. I also want to tell success story about the new vaccine that we introduced in Chile in 2050. And in Chile, it's a disease that is not harmed the Norwegian industry, but it have harmed many years and caused a lot of mortality in Chile. It's Episcerichezza salmonis is the name of the bacteria, the disease they call SRS. We on other pharmaceutical company have been there with inactivated vaccine, but it still have been quite a lot of antibiotic used and also a high mortality. We were the first to introduce a live attenuated vaccine licensed for Atlantic salmon. And when you are the first one, it's very difficult to know, and we didn't have experience at all either. So it was important to have a dialogue with the Senapesca and SAC authorities in Chile to find out what is required to document this vaccine. And after several meetings, we understand and agree on how to document this vaccine. I think it has been a success, and the reason why I said that is that it's 60% reduction in mortality caused by SRS when you use this vaccine. And it's 40% reduction in antibiotic used. And the sources on these numbers is Senapesca, the authorities, Aquabench, and PHARMAQ sale data. Next slide, please. So the last story I want to mention was also in Chile, because in Chile in 2008 they were the biggest producer of salmon, Atlantic salmon, but that something happened and with a high mortality, and it was 68 reduction in the harvest volume from 2018 to 2010. This was caused by a virus called infectious salmon anemia, and this caused 68% reduction in harvest volume of Atlantic salmon these 3 years. So what did we do? Yes, we put the 50% of our PHARMAQ R&D people to try to do as fast as possible to develop a vaccine against these diseases. It's a virus vaccine, it's not that easy. It used to take many years, but we managed to launch a vaccine in 2010. And since then, the ISA situation has been under control since 2010, and the production volume expected pre-crisis levels. We have 70% market share because this vaccine also include the bacteria vaccine against bacteria disease and IPN, another virus. And still today, this is the biggest product that is sold and used in Chile. I also need to mention a new sea lice product that we managed to launch in 2009 in Chile, Alphaflux. You might know, and I also mentioned earlier, that sea lice is recognized as one of the biggest threats to fish health and main obstacle of growth of aquaculture, and I'm not talking about the salmon industry. It has been very few efficacious medical products available. This is due to the resistance development. So we managed, and we have been working with many years and use a lot of money to bring this product. But it's so nice when you manage to register such a product. It's a first batch product providing prolonged protection against sea lice infestation. Improve fish health welfare, that is very, very important, and also allow full growth potential and fish welfare with less handling and fewer starvation periods. So I have just 2 slides left. Please go to the next one. Just to show where we are. And as you see, we are a global company. The blue one is on the salmon industry. We are all in the main countries. The yellow one or orange is for tilapia, where we are both in Asia and Latin America. And also Pangasius in Vietnam. What you also is a challenge when you talk about these two species, because of course salmon, we can use quite a lot of money to develop a product, high protected product, because the value of the fish is $5 to $7 per kilo. But when it comes to tilapia, it's only $1.7. And that is also say something that we cannot have very high production cost to get some revenue out of this. Okay, the last one. Can I have the last slide, please? Thank you. So it was mentioned that we now are part of Zoetis. Zoetis is the #1 within animal health. They are in headquarters in New Jersey in US. The R&D is now reporting to a person in the R&D in Chile. It's in Kalamazoo, and it is a change, but I think it's a lot of benefit to be part of a big animal health with many years experience. For instance, we are now in China. They have built up a production facility and R&D facility. We could never do that if we have not been owned by Zoetis. They also all over the world, so when we want to register product in the different countries, it's so supporting to have Zoetis because they are there. They also have new technology that is important for us to introduce also for product and vaccine for salmon. So thank you. I hope I didn't use too much time. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Dana. Joining us on the virtual stage next is Erling Sundrehagen and Torsten Knitting. Erling is Chief Scientific Officer and Torsten the Vice President for Research and Development at Gentian Diagnostics. Erling established Axis Biochemicals, which after a merger with Scottish Shield was sold to the American Alair in 2011. It is one of the biggest and earliest successes of the Norwegian pharmaceutical industry. Erling continued as R&D Director in Axis Shield and simultaneously established Gentian Diagnostics in 2001. Torsten started his position in Gentian in 2019. He has a long career from the pharmaceutical industry in companies such as Thermo Fisher and GE Healthcare. Erling and Torsten, please join the stage for your speech on producing in Norway, selling abroad, how to reach export markets.
Many thanks, Lotte. So I hope you can all hear and see me. And I'm here today with my colleague Erling, and we will both lead you through this presentation, producing in Norway, selling abroad, how to reach export markets. And overall, many thanks to the Oslo Life Science Cluster for giving us the opportunity for this presentation. So next slide, please. Here's just a short overview of our presentation. So we will give you some information about Gentian, who we are, our history, what are our markets, products, and more information about our customers. And then, of course, directed to the presentation here, how Gentian was able to create a market pull, how we were able to have a global mindset, and in the end, think global, act local. Next slide, please. So, a bit information about Gentian, who we are and our history. Next slide, please. Our vision is that we innovate diagnostic efficiency by improving the laboratory workflow of our customers, and with this, improving the clinical outcome. And we do this by transferring existing immunoassays from low volume instruments to high volume, high throughput clinical analyzers. Next slide, please. So, who's Gentian? Gentian develops and produces high sensitive turbidimetric immunoassays, and our assays can be used on all major clinical chemistry analyzers. In our assays, we use avian antibodies, and with this, we are able to keep the costs down on our side and give a competitive pricing product to our customers. Our headquarters is in Moss, circa half an hour south from Oslo. And here in Moss, we have research and development, production, quality assurance, regulatory affairs, business development, marketing, and sales. In addition, we have representative offices in Sweden, China, and the US. We are 50 employees globally, and since 2016, we have been on the micro market. Next slide, please. This slide just gives an overview over the laboratory workflow and what does it actually mean with laboratory efficiency. So on one side, you have the low volume immunoassay instruments where you reach a maximum of 400 tests per hour. However, with going over to the high throughput clinical analyzers, our customers are able to go up to 2,000 tests per hour. And again, our tests are instrument independent. Next slide, please. Here is a slide for Erling. Please, Erling, take over.
Oh, thank you. I have been participating in the diagnostic industry development for close to 40 years. And it all started with ideas from my colleagues and superiors at the hospital of Nordland in Bodø, and my boss there for 10 years, Dr. Erling Saltere. This was developed in Oslo, and it was a period where we were quite alone. It was quite uncommon to start industry and diagnostic industry in Norway. We established Axis Biochemicals, and a couple of hundred people are still working in the old buildings of Tandberg in Oslo, and we have had a quite okay development in developing products based on the ideas from my colleagues and from people in the diagnostic environment in Norway. In 1999, we merged with the Scottish company Shield Diagnostics, and it was taken over by Alere in 2011 and acquired by Abbott in 2017. That means that a few hundred people in the diagnostic industry in Norway, they are now employees in the Abbott system, which has also opened an opportunity for selling really international areas, developing sales in Southern America, in China, in Japan, which was not so easy for the small Axis Shield company in the 1990s. In 2001, we established the Gentian company. My brother, Bård, established the Gentian company. He called me and asked, do you have any ideas for new products and new opportunities? Because he has lost his job in Halden in the telephone company industry, and he needed some opportunities after he had been with me in the starting of Axis Biochemicals back in 1985, and I opened my drawer and took out some ideas from Erling Solterud and other colleagues, and I said, well, here we have 3-4 projects, please start out. And Bård and his colleagues in Moss, they launched the first diagnostic product from Gentian in 2006, and was quite successful in Asia, developing good sales in China and also in the US. And today, Gentian is a public company listed on the Oslo Merkur market and has a quite good growth, and have 50 people who have joined the company and developed a very interesting diagnostic group, in my opinion. Thank you.
Good. Next slide, please. Okay, let's continue then with some of our products, market, and customer information. Next slide, please. So this slide gives just an overview over the total in vitro diagnostic market. So globally, this is roughly $78 billion. Mainly, it is proof point of care and molecular diagnostics assays. However, $70.5 billion is dedicated to the immunoassays, and just $9.1 billion for the clinical chemistry. And this is exactly Gentian's playground. So by moving immunoassays from the immunoassay market segment to the clinical chemistry segment, we are opening up the clinical chemistry segment and making this segment available for our customers with the highest throughput and cost-effective instruments. I think the next slide is again for Erling. Next slide, please.
Oh, thank you. In a way, Gentian never invented new products, but we took ideas and proposals from our customers when they asked for help. In many ways, this was not our ideas, it was their ideas. It was coming in from colleagues in Norway, from the US, from customers in companies like Abbott and Boehringer Mannheim in the old days. And we then just took these ideas and used our best skills. And our technology was developing into what we call particle-enhanced turbidimetric immunoassays. And this is the technology which is based on the which has founded the growth of Gentian so far. And we have a listing here in the bottom about the new products coming out. Our first product in Moss was the cystatin C immunoassay, which was at that point very unique and very high quality. And we competed against Dako, and immediately my brother Bård took this marker, this product, to the Chinese market and to the Asian markets. South Korea was developing into a good market for small Gentian. And we followed up with new veterinary diagnostic products like the canine CRP product. We got into collaboration with the Bühlmann Laboratories, who was experted in fecal testing, which was outside our core competence, but we made the reagents that Bühlmann Laboratories used in their fecal testing products, and we launched fecal calprotectin assays in 2015 and blood calprotectin assays in 2019. We also have a collaboration with Bühlmann in the area of pancreatic elastase, and we now are on the brink of launching cardiac markers and SARS-CoV markers for cardiac disease and severe infectious diseases. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, let's get an overview of our Gentian's customers. And here we categorize our customers into 3 segments. One segment is the end user, which are usually large global clinical laboratories where Gentian is going directly to them. However, in addition, we go through distributors to the end users. And on the right side, we also have OEM customers. These are large global diagnostic companies who are actually also producing immunoassays and clinical analyzers. They are able then also to reach out to the end users, also via distributors. Next slide, please. So, how are you able to reach the expert market and sell abroad? And how was Gentian able to position themselves and their products globally? So, with this, let's take a few moments how Gentian created actually a market pull. Next slide, please. As we have seen and heard from Erling before, Gentian right now just has a handful of products. So how can you position these products globally? One way can be that you hire a lot of salespeople and then try to sell these products to your end customers. Can be possible. However, if there's one thing the world probably does not need is more salespeople. So another solution which Gentian chose was going to the right distributors. With right distributors, I mean distributors who have complementary products, so where your products fit right in so that you can offer a complete portfolio to the end users. So that's what we did. And we were quite successful. We were able to place, as Erling already mentioned before, our products through distributors at the end users, large clinical laboratories. And by this, we created a demand at the OEM companies, because the OEM companies, the large global diagnostic companies, they also have the clinical laboratories as the end user. And they saw that more and more of these laboratories implemented Gentian's assay over time. And this created a demand at the OEM side, circling back to Gentian. So once this demand has been created, Gentian was able to discuss supply agreements directly with these large global OEM companies. But of course, to be able to do this, you need to really understand your customer and the pain points of your customer. Because all these large global diagnostic companies, they have a big diagnostic analyte portfolio. So you need to really investigate, do a gap analysis and identify the holes in their portfolio. Once you did this, and Gentian did this quite successfully, we were able to sell our products as a solution to them, because our products with the avian antibodies, they have a unique product capability, moving over from the low volume immunoassay instruments and giving them the chance to use high throughput clinical analyzers. So on one side, we were able to keep the costs down with our technology, and on the other side, we were enabling our customers for high throughput analysis, and with this save them time and money. However, to really be successful internationally, you need to understand the market. Next slide, please. And to be successful on the market, you need to have a global mindset. Next slide, please. And with this, to have a global mindset, we mean you need to be actively part of the international trade shows. On the left-hand side, I have just listed the major trade shows which are going on globally. So we have Medica in Düsseldorf in Germany. We have the AACC in the US. the American Association of Clinical Chemistry, and we have ACMIT. So you need to be there. Usually as a Norwegian, a small Norwegian company, the market does not come to you. You need to come to the market. You need to be at these trade shows. You need to interact with the customers. And by this, you need to identify your opportunities. And you need to be able to investigate and sense the market and find out new technology trends. And as I mentioned earlier, you need to understand your customer and the pain points and how you can help them. So in my former job as a business development manager for a large American company, I attended Medica for many, many years. And usually when you attend Medica, you get a thick book with all the attendees listed in this book order. And if I move to N for Norway, it was usually just a handful of companies listed there. In the last years, it was even less. But one company was always there, and that was Gentian. So you, Erling, you really understood right from the start how important it is to be available at these global trade shows and have this global mindset. So that is very important. Also shown in the different steps Gentian has taken with the first product and then focusing on China, up also things in the US. So, and of course, in the end, this global mindset makes you then also interesting for investors. Next slide, please. The third advice we will give here is think global, but act local. So actually, what does it mean? Next slide. Thank you. So once you're out there, you have identified international customers, you really can use Norway to your advantage. And by this mean, you need to invite your international customers here to Norway to visit your facilities. Here in Norway, we have really a unique culture, low hierarchy, high quality. So for Gentian, it was very successful that once we invite the customers here, we let them walk the halls, talk to our colleagues, and show them how enthusiastic the whole company is for their products. And once you've done that, you should arrange something in the evening. I just have some pictures here from some of our Gentian events showing that we did whip boating on the Oslo fjord, and also, of course, we visited landmarks here in Oslo. So maybe for us here in Norway, this sounds like a phrase or a buzzword, but I can guarantee you that for international customers, this is great, and they will never forget that. Next slide, please. So with this, I'm nearing at the end of our presentation. To summarize this, producing in Norway, selling abroad, how to reach export markets. First of all, you need to have a unique product serving your customers' needs. For us, it's the turbidimetric immunoassays using avian antibodies. Again, we can keep costs down on our side, but enabling customers to move over to the high throughput clinical analyzers and keep costs down on their side. In addition, the smart business model. To position your products globally, you really need to understand who your customers should be and then identify your opportunities in their portfolio. And then in the end, think global, act local. You really should use Norway to your advantage. Next slide, please. And with this, I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any comments or questions, please don't be shy and reach out to us. Thank you very much.
In this section, we will present a panel discussion on big corporations and their role in the ecosystem. To moderate this conversation, we're glad to have Kristine Fløytland. Kristine is the founder and CEO of By Nature. By Nature is a startup company who helps promote sustainable solutions from Norway to a global audience. Kristine is a former employee and friend of the Life Science Cluster. The panelists for the discussions are Maria Alt-Indier, Chief Advisor, Bioprocesses and Business Strategy at Norilia, Frode Nakkim, Communications, Public Affairs and Sustainability Manager at Bayer, Tove Klem Jacobsen, Global Program Leader at GE Healthcare, and Svein Olav Huseth, Head of Research and Development, Global Omega-3, BASF. Welcome all, and I hand the word over to you, Kristine.
Thank you so much, Lotte, for the introductions. I believe we have all our panel guests here. Are we missing one, maybe? Perfect, Bode is here. It is great to be with you all here today. Congratulations on a great day and a great program. In this panel, we are going to discuss what role big corporations play in the ecosystem and how they can help us unleash the potential of life science in Norway. We know that future success for companies, and large, depends on collaboration with others. Success is as much about helping other firms innovate as it is about innovating yourself. This can be a challenging mindset to adopt, but it has proven a fruitful path for expansion and growth. The thinking is that one single player cannot shape an industry alone. So, Svein Olaf, I hope you're not unmuted.
Oh, I'm here.
You're here, great. I would like to open up the discussion with a look at how one of the big corporations, BASF, came to be a player in the Norwegian ecosystem. Maybe you can help us see why you still have such a strong presence here in Norway and how you collaborate with others to make this happen.
I sure will. Yeah, for us, it's all started a long time ago, in 1838, to refine and trade marine oils. But I think the major part going from the manufacturing per se is when Norsk Hydro actually pioneered the pharmaceuticals of omega-3. And they did that back in the early 1980s. Pronova Biopharma was established in early 1990s, and we actually achieved a blockbuster status of the main product we had at that time in 2009. And then BASF acquired us in 2013. And based on this, even though we went into a big corporation, a global company, we're still highly present in Norway. And in my mind, this is definitely due to the unique manufacturing and product competence we had. Even there is a lot of international competition within the company to where development and manufacturing can happen. They placed the head office of the omega-3 business in Norway. Actually what we achieved was to combine the competence and the muscles that BASF have from a global, in that global corporation. Based on their help, we have been able to launch new products, even with new technologies, in a definitely bigger, broader, and complete global market. And that's basically the main success for why we're still in Norway. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Do you see any competitive advantages given your long history that has developed along the way since 1838? That can what is your uniqueness?
I think the uniqueness is definitely the strength in manufacturing, both the technology per se, but also all the manufacturing knowledge and technology and knowledge behind it. Yeah. But also the understanding the whole value chain, the whole concept of what to develop. It's the global thinking, having anything from the idea to how this is going to help consumer and patient at the end. And also would like to add that uniqueness we added into the BASF the other way is the way we have been working, the way we have been collaborating with other companies, with biotech, with universities, and entrepreneurs throughout the world in that global thinking. And that way of working, which is more a Nordic way, I would say. The strength there is also that established other parts of BASF. They've seen the advantage of that.
Oh, that's great, and it's all about collaborating. Just to be clear to make it clear for the audience, you're still producing in Norway. Is it in Sandefjord?
Yes, we're still producing in Sandefjord, in addition to Scotland and Germany, but we have really strengthened the manufacturing site in Sandefjord in the overall value chain for the company.
And one reason why you're still in Sandefjord and in Norway and not in, let's say, China with your production is this uniqueness, this model of collaborating, the Nordic model, as you mentioned, but also your manufacturing processes, the knowledge behind it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And all the process knowledge around that and kind of even possibilities to improve at all time.
Yeah. So definitely a competitive advantage for you.
Sure.
Tove, you have a background in both science and marketing, and you have been instrumental in building crucial R&D capacity and knowledge in Norway within your field. You are now leading global development programs within GE Healthcare. How important has this science capacity in the ecosystem been for the continued presence and production line for companies such as GE Healthcare here in Norway? Can you perhaps relate to Svein Olav's story?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. So GE Healthcare has a long history back to medical imaging, and the company has been through very many phases, mergers, and finally then the GE, which bought imaging in 2004. And our key products today in medical imaging are based on massive R&D investments decades ago. And this competence has also been shared, of course, with young biotech as the company has developed. And also people have been leaving and supporting young biotech with the competence, the global competence. Today, GE is again investing in R&D and expanding the product portfolio. So in order to have success, we need a critical mass of the internal expertise to manage innovation and drive the change. This said, also outsourcing to CROs is also the new normal for pharma. So collaboration with academia and university hospitals is crucial for the product development. And for GE, I would also emphasize that it's important that our Norwegian collaborators within university and hospitals are also internationally recognized. This is due to our internal competition within GE in a global setting. Internally, R&D is today working very closely with production. So GE downsized a large part of the R&D, but today we are working even more closely with production. And I think the innovative mindset is present throughout the organization due to this, and also provide the best possible success for new products within medical imaging.
Would you say that GE in Norway has also benefited from the Nordic model, the collaborating, the closeness here in Norway between the partners?
I would say that yes, now we are back to that. It's been a few years where GE, which is a global conglomerate and not only within healthcare, may not have seen the asset that is in the Nordic countries. But the last years, definitely this has become more visible, and I'm very happy to be back in GE and see that exactly the Nordic collaborative success story is being visible and also appreciated within GE.
And just to kind of get the audience on board on how big you are in Norway, do you remember how much you export and what kind of percentage that is from for the Norwegian export in this industry?
Yeah, GE Healthcare is driven through 95% export, and export is the basis for growth of our production site in Oslo and at Lindesnes, and also for securing our 900 employees. And I would say GE's expertise includes the interaction with health authorities in more than 100 countries. It's complex. We are dealing with complex demand management and logistics. So there is a huge competence from serving the global market. And I think also this competence is quite unique for big pharma. And as such, we can provide this learning and competence to younger biotech companies that try to enter the international arena.
Great, and you're such a big player here in Norway, but you do have to compete with other countries. You're not totally secure in your presence in Norway, right?
No, so being a global hub for both API and finished products, we are dependent on the support from the local environment. Our production sites face internal competition within GE manufacturing sites in both China and Ireland. And competitive advantages in Norway include highly competent workforce, high quality, stable energy supply and water. But in Ireland, they have dedicated government incentives for pharmaceutical production and technology development, also including sustainability and green development. And China has multiple regulatory and political incentives for local manufacturing. So for GE, it is in order to be able to grow and to be a hub for production in Oslo and in the district in Norway, we need a suited infrastructure, risk reduction through government support and regulatory body which understand our challenges and implement international regulations with realistic timelines, not the least.
Yeah, so competition is fierce. Maria, in building ecosystems, success is all about collaboration, and we've heard some examples here about the importance of collaboration. We know also that companies that have built successful ecosystems, they have often done so by broadening the scope of their offerings and their partners to find new opportunities. Is this the story of Norelia?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a long history as a division and later a daughter company of Nortura, and we take care of rest raw materials from meat and egg. And for example, these are like hides and wool and natural casings and so on. And we've had a great success with those type of products internationally. We export around 70% of our products. But we have a lot of options for even more value creation on our ingredient or on our products. And so we saw option for broadening our scope and creating some new higher value kind of niche products. And to get that in place, collaboration has been instrumental for managing that. And that is both with academia and with industry partners, and of course with support of organizations such as Innovation Norway and Research Council and so on. Because these are specialized ingredients, you need a lot of research and innovation activities before you can implement that, both on the sort of applications and the product side, but also on the process side. And so we work very tightly together with research institutes because we are, while our mother company is large, we are in Norelia fairly small. So we're completely depending on getting the expertise from outside, while of course building up our own expertise as we go along. And some ideas can come from very unexpected sources. So that is also something we are very open to. So for example, when BioVotec came to us and said we would like to have some eggshell membranes, so the little membrane that's on the inside of an egg, because we want to develop an innovative sore healing product, we say, okay, let's explore that. And in the end, because we have then a supply chain approach to this, or an ecosystem, you could say, we actually managed to implement that at a process at Nortura Revetal, where we actually managed to be able to supply that product to them. And similarly, similar approach when we implemented enzymatic hydrolysis at Nortura Harland at the Bioco biorefinery. This was also having the supply chain there, or the value chain there, with both Nortura as supplier and Fellowship Agri as a possible market. This has been very key to getting things in place, going from an innovative idea to an actual industrialized process.
Great. And moving here from the Netherlands, I am sure you have noticed a few things about the Norwegian ecosystems. Is there anything that you see in the Netherlands that is missing here or that could be applied here, given that the Netherlands is ranking fairly high, 4th in the world on innovation, etc.?
Yeah, so we saw also earlier Netherlands mentioned a couple of times, and Netherlands is actually a fairly small country, and the population is only 3 times the size of Norway, yet they rank high on a lot of different things. And I think one interesting thing that has happened in the last 10 years or so is that the Dutch government has had a policy called top sectors. And here they picked out 9 different top sectors where Netherlands is already very strong on. So, for example, agriculture and food, life science and health, energy and water. We're quite famous for that. And in this policy, there is a very strong focus on public-private partnerships. So the government is not scared to connect academia to companies and actually help companies innovate in ideas and make new business. By having academia and the government and companies work very closely together. And that means like right now there's been like over 2,000 organizations involved in this program, and 5 billion euros per year go to this. So, and right now there's been a slight shift, which I think is very interesting for Norway as well, is that they have been focusing not just on trying to make more innovations in export, but actually focusing on solving global challenges through what they call missions and developing key technologies that are actually highlighted by policymakers. So policymakers are getting very directly involved in what should be innovations and actually supporting companies in getting that in place. So I think that is something sort of inspiring maybe to Norway. But one negative of that could be that top sectors, there could also be a lot of synergies between top sectors, and that has not really had a focus here. And that is,
so there could be a little bit of silo thinking still.
And that is of course what the life science cluster has as a benefit, that they try to also go
go across silos. I think that's important as well. Frode, I don't see you in the picture here, but I'm hoping you're with us. Bayer is another big corporation, major player in the ecosystem. Listening to the rest of the panel here, do you see any similarities or anything you would like to add from Bayer's perspective?
I think there's lots of similarities, and I can relate to most of what has been said from the others. When it comes to our role in the ecosystem, I think for global corporations like ours, it's about investments in research, development, products and distribution. And I don't know if you know, but the global commercial pharma industry invests totally more than a Norwegian government budget every year in research and development. And that illustrates our global role. But then locally, I think the Bayer Algeta story is a very good example on how our roles differs. Bayer acquired Algeta for approximately 18 billion NOK in the currency in 2014. And then most people and most papers said that now Algeta is sold out of Norway. But instead, since 2014, Bayer have invested approximately 2 billion Norwegian kroner in R&D in Norway. In addition, we have invested in production at the Institute for Energy Techniques. And that illustrates the roles. I mean, the local startups like Algeta needs finance and competence to move forward and approach a global players like Bayer are able to support that. And in the end, I think it's not important who owns, if it's Norwegian or foreign companies that are the owners, have the ownership in Norway, but where the value creation is made. And I can reveal that as an example that a fresh report from Menon shows that the value creation of the IFE and Bayer Corporation is the double of the average value creation in the Norwegian health industry. And that says something about, I mean, the potential in collaboration between local startups and global companies. And in addition, I mean, we have collaborated and we are collaborating with both University of Oslo and Oslo University Hospital.
and this happens because the competence, the expertise was established in Norway when Bayer came into the picture. And I think that's a key, that we can keep the development of the products and the companies in Norway for such a long time, that the competence and expertise is established here. Then it's easy for a company like Bayer to continue the production in Norway, to establish commercial production in Norway, and to move forward with the research and development investments in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when Bayer bought Algeta, it was totally open where we should do the commercial production and where we should invest further in the research and development. But because the expertise was here, it was easy to continue in Norway.
Okay, great input, Frode. I think actually you nailed one of the keys to unleashing the potential of life science in Norway. So we have the answer, or at least some of it. So time is running quickly, so I would like to pass a last question around to all four of you. We have heard now how important production and competence building in Norway, keeping production in Norway to secure the value creation. This is important for the continued growth and presence of all your companies in Norway. But if you were to make kind of a wish list, some of you touched upon it, what do you need? It is still a fierce competition internationally, globally. What could help you in your quest to continue production, to continue building the competence and the value creation here in Norway? So if you could do a round, first one, hands up, who wants to go first?
Nobody wants to go first. I could go first, because I think it's both into the competence in production, but also the competent workforce when it comes to the product itself. So it's both areas, I would say, and continue to build up on that. So we have recruitment to recruit new positions and people locally that understand that and have that competence that is needed there is one part of it. And because we need research communities that are able and willing to collaborate, even into co-development, if that is feasible for the product. And the second pillar for me is definitely the financial situation. Like we heard from Netherlands and we see it also from Scotland, and we heard today in Ireland, that kind of support, both from private financial and also governmental, that is crucial, I would say, to establish it further.
Okay, great. Tove, you had your hands up.
So this is the same as Frode Sven Olaf is focusing on. It's I think we have the great base of the expertise in Norway. We are the ones who have to profile this out internally in the global company as we are. We need help, of course, that also the collaborators are internationally well known, has a reputation. That helps. When it comes to the financial, I think we have visible innovation support from the Research Council and innovation as such. But when it comes to technology, production and improving on the green line, the incentives from the government, I think, have to expand and make it easier for us as a global company as well to invest in improved production, digital changes that are not definitely defined as research and innovation as the traditionally definition is. So I think the learning from the Netherlands is something that we should look more into, and also Ireland and Scotland, as we hear here.
Yeah. Frode, you had your hands up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what has been said, and but I think the key is to define niches where we can be competitive on a global level. I think it's very difficult for Norway to say that we should be a global leader within the total of life sciences or within healthcare or health industry, but we can find niches within life sciences that we can be a leader, a global leader. But then we have to, the key again, as we have, all of us have pointed out, is collaboration. We have to collaborate very well between industry, academia, government, healthcare system, and so on, the public services. There has to be a very well developed public-private partnership, and that has to be, I think, more active partnership from the government towards both the global corporations, global companies, if they really want global companies to establish production or develop industry in Norway, they have to be more active towards companies like ours. And there has to be even more financial support towards the startup community.
Okay, great. Thank you. Maria, do you have any last, how do we make these niches here in Norway as they do in the Netherlands?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of our niches would actually be abroad. So one comment I would like to follow up on Frode is that to be able to take those niches abroad, we could definitely use more support on kind of the regulation and legislation and so on when we bring a new product to a market abroad. And there also, I think, collaboration between companies that are sort of in a similar situation or a similar boat, building an ecosystem in these new markets could be very relevant with support from the authorities.
So definitely a fast car, so we can turn around quickly, but we need to find our niches in order to compete globally. I think I'll leave it at that. It's all about collaboration upon all of us. And there's going to be a panel discussion at the very end of the day where they talk about more collaboration into academia, the universities. You all mentioned that. But I think, unfortunately, that's all we had time for this time. But I think we unlocked some of the potential in life science here, or at least we came with some very good suggestions. So thank you all. I hope the rest of you enjoyed this panel discussion and that the government pick up on this wish list also. So thank you for listening. Thank you to the panelists, and over to you, Lotta.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for an interesting discussion, and yes, I hope they were listening to that. All right, so we're moving on to the second section. Aitana Peire is the investment manager at Canica, one of the largest privately owned investment companies in Norway. Aitana came to Canica in 2017 to manage the future of health portfolio. Before that, she worked at various roles that involved buy-side and sell-side valuation of life science assets and companies, including at venture valuation and Kepler Cheuvreux. Aitana will be sharing the stage with Øyvind Enger. Øyvind is a partner and investment advisor at Patria Seeds, a Norwegian early-stage venture capital fund investing in companies within life science sectors. Øyvind has for many years commercialized research-based projects within life sciences. Aitana and Øyvind, we look forward to hearing your talk titled Private Investment in the Life Science Industry, Norway on the International Scene, Bottlenecks, Ecosystem and Future Opportunities.
Thank you, Lotte.
Thank you, Lotte. Great to see you, Aitana.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, here we are, two biologists asked to talk about finance. That's very interesting.
I mean, that's usually the case. If you want to invest in life sciences, and it's a topic we will touch upon, it's good to also understand the science, at least.
I think that's important. That's a key. So I'm looking forward to talk to you.
Yes, so I mean, we have prepared a little bit the topics we would like to discuss, but we are going to try to keep it like an open conversation. So perhaps, Øyvind, you can start. I mean, you obviously have a much better understanding of the Norwegian landscape than maybe you can explain what's your view, how would you describe the Norwegian life science ecosystem from research to industry? And you can also touch upon the strongholds and the weaknesses of it.
Yes, I think that the main stronghold is that we have a very good scientific basis in Norway, in some very specific areas. I think the main stronghold might be, or I think it is actually the cancer research, Norwegian cancer research, which is internationally very strong, and it's regarded as very strong, and especially the Radiumhospitalet, the environment around the Radiumhospitalet is very strong, and it has kind of led to establishment of companies like Algeta, and also Vaccibody comes out of University of Oslo. And I think that is a result of a very strong scientific community. And also the ultrasound people or groups in Trondheim, they are very strong, and they have both in research and in commerce. So it has resulted in companies like Wingmed Sound, which was later bought by and is now part of GE Healthcare. But I think we should also remember aquaculture, because aquaculture, as we saw in Hanne Mette's talk, aquaculture is a very important part of the Norwegian economy, and the Norwegian aquaculture success, it's easy to forget that is also based on strong science, all the way back from Fridtjof Nansen and his research on cod and other marine species, and all the way to a few people know that there's actually a quite heavy research on mRNA vaccines for fish in Norway. So we're at the research front when it comes to also to vaccines, and especially fish vaccines. And the way that we were able to stop the use of the heavy use of antibiotics in Norwegian aquaculture in the 90s, that was very much due to very good Norwegian research. But and finally, I would like to mention the bioprospecting initiatives going on in Trondheim and Tromsø. That has led to some industrial development, but I think there's a lot there still to unleash. So that's and when it comes to weaknesses, my view is that the lack of industrial engine is one of the main weaknesses. We had two engines. We had Statoil and we had Hydro, which were both involved in biotech some 15, 20 years ago. But they both stopped doing biotech and focused on their main fields of business. And I think that was very tragic to the development of Norwegian biotech and Norwegian life science-based business. So, and then of course, we also lack a lot of C-level or experienced C-level personnel or executives to populate the kind of blooming startup underwood that you see in Norway now. But what's your view, Aitana, as seen from outside? You've been looking at Norway now for a couple of years, 2 years. And what does it look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say the points you have touched upon, the strengths or the areas of expertise of Norway are very clearly defined and very well defined by you. Obviously, I focus on therapeutics, so I was much more aware of the ultrasounds, radiopharmaceutical, oncology therapies. As seen from the outside, Norway has, let's say, some peculiarities that are sometimes common to other Nordic countries, sometimes specific. I would say one that is very important is that the science has become very mature, and you were mentioning the blooming startup landscape. That's really quite impressive. I think perhaps you are missing C-level expertise, but certainly not entrepreneurial spirit. And that makes for a very agile environment, very adaptive, but also quite, let's say, the solutions are very good. It's always very impressive to see innovation coupled with real interesting practical applications. What I feel sometimes is perhaps missing is because now many of these early stage companies are coming to the next step where they are becoming more mature. They could benefit, like you mentioned, from an industrial engine, but they can also benefit simply from international partnerships and international investors, because if we look at the life science world, or the, let's say, the therapeutics, the health world nowadays, it's much more, startups are much more prominent. They play a much more important role than they used to. I mean, they achieve later stages, they become much stronger with the help of their investors and of partnerships with big players. And then they are at a much better position of becoming someone bigger or an interesting partner or being acquired. So, I mean, I would say that's how I see it from the outside. And I was wondering, perhaps you can also develop a little bit more about the industrial support. How do you see it in comparison to other Nordic countries? Because I understand that this is always where the comparison gets drawn in Norway, and perhaps you can develop a bit more on that.
Yeah, I think that if we look to Sweden, Sweden has a kind of traditional pharma industry that has been growing, and I think that they're still suffering a bit, though, from the lack of pharmacia. But a lot of the people from the pharmacia group, or from the pharmacia management, they kind of percolated out in the Swedish research startup community, and you see them popping up all over the place in Sweden. So in Sweden there is a strong tradition for pharmaceutical and also for medtech development. And in Sweden, like in all big brewer nations, and in Denmark, I mean, in all, Sweden is not a big brewer nation, but in Denmark, you have a very blooming pharmaceutical industries with giants like Lundbeck, Leo, and not to forget Novo Nordisk, which is very big, and they act as kind of industrial engines, kind of dragging a lot of activity with them as they move. But at the same time, I think it could also be a bit dangerous with such big engines, because they kind of set the flavor of what's important and what's not important. Very early, when we first invested in Vaccibody, I mentioned Vaccibody to a friend of mine, and an investor working in Novo Seeds, and he said, "Are you investing in that? That's a graveyard. Don't do it." But we still invested in Vaccibody, and I think that is a possible danger for that the big engines kind of set the flavor of what's in and what's out, and they're very kind of influenced by what's in the pharma industry at the moment. But we have kind of the possibility, opportunity to go against the current and do what we think is good. And in Sarsia, we always look to the science.
Yeah.
How good is the science? And that's how we found Vaccibody.
Yeah. and I mean, I think that's a really important point, and that also reminds us that all the players are important. So big pharma is for sure essential to make sure, like you say, that expertise is fostered and finance at some point. But early stage investors are also very important. I mean, the one thing that perhaps we can try to remind companies that seek investment from early stage investors is that the perspectives are different and the objectives are different. So it's important for companies looking for investment to share the objectives of the investors they are looking for. So for an early stage company, they will look for an investor that will accompany them perhaps for 5 to 10 years. And from then on, they need to find a different kind of financing. So that's why it's important that at that point they have also reached out to big industry partners that are the ones that are the most appropriate for later on, or perhaps early stage investors like Sarsia Seeds, and then venture capitalists that intend to invest in perhaps bridge financings or IPOs. But then you have to look for public investors or for big industry players, for sure. And another thing that I also wanted to add about that is that AstraZeneca and Lundbeck, they are not only investing in local companies. They also invest in Norwegian companies, but they also invest abroad, and Swedish and Danish companies also have investors and partners from abroad. So it's important to focus on what is not there to make sure that it will appear there at some point. But it's also very good to work with all the resources that are already there, which are very many, I would say.
So I thought that brings me to another question then. Should the Norwegian startups or early phase companies be more brave then and look abroad for financing? We heard earlier today that access to funds and funding is seen as a limitation for Norwegian companies. So should we be more brave and look abroad to Europe and to the US for funding our companies?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting comment from this morning as well. I mean, that's one that I have heard in every single European country, that in France we don't have enough access to funds, in Spain, in the UK, in Germany. And that speaks to the fact that investors very often are not cross borders. So I think that's starting to change, especially in life sciences, in healthcare, because it's a global industry by default. There are many more funds that are trying to form international syndicates that can bring expertise from different countries at once. I think it's very important to try to look for international investors and partners. But for sure, you need first a very strong support of your local investors, because that's what's going to make international investors more comfortable with the story, usually, except for, for sometimes some investors that are really looking cross borders for even projects at the research stage. But in general, investors like to see that there is support from the local investors before going abroad. I mean, would you agree with that?
Definitely, I would agree with that, and the importance of building syndicating early in company funding and in raising money is extremely important, and it's become much more important the recent last years, I think. And luckily we've seen an ecosystem of early phase and medium phase investors growing up in Norway, which means that we are able to syndicate. When we started back in 2006, we were more or less alone, and to mention Vaxibody again, we invested in 7 rounds in Vaxibody alone.
Yeah.
So that's but I think our time is more or less up.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps in the last minute, even if you want, you can maybe discuss what companies should be expecting when they approach Sarsia Seeds.
They should be expecting that we are demanding. We might be regarded as demanding because we expect the companies to answer questions they often haven't even thought of before meeting us, and we have kind of very often another focus than the company would have, because they're just focused on their development. We have to focus also on the end. What is going to happen with this company when you reach the market, or maybe even before that? What are the plans for that, and how do you plan to kind of we're exit oriented as investors, of course, and that is very often we see that as it comes as a surprise to founders and to scientists.
Yeah.
Do you see the same?
So, I mean, I think what you mentioned is very important for companies to bear in mind and also to understand, but it certainly helps them develop their strategy and focus their strategy, which can be very important. I mean, from Canica, we are long-term investors. We don't have these specific time periods, which mean we can accompany the company for longer. But we also like to emphasize that we don't like to only invest funds, that we also like to invest expertise and networking and support them, but without wanting to take over the management, rather just making sure that the management is capable of developing their vision, which is, I'm sure, what Sarsia Seeds does for sure. So yeah, that's basically the answer. Yeah.
I call it not active ownership, but hyperactive ownership.
Exactly. Never sleeps ownership.
Yeah. No. Okay. Thank you, Aitana.
Thank you very much.
Talking to you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
See you.
Thank you both for sharing your experience. You mentioned how things are done in the other Nordic countries, and then it fits well to move on to Helena Strigård. Helena took up her position as CEO of Sweden Bio in September last year. Sweden Bio is a driving force for Nordic collaboration. Helena has also held various positions at the Ministry of Finance and has previously worked as an advisor within research and innovation politics at the Confederation of Swedish Enterprise and as an advisor at Business Europe. Thank you for joining us today, Helena, to give your talk on international business development and how to make the most of global networks and value chains.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me and see me well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my slides are already running. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about something which is close to my heart. I'm quite passionate about this topic, as are the organizer of this event, I know, the Life Science Cluster in Norway. And I will talk to you now about international business development and how to make the most of global networks and value chains. And you presented me just now, so I will not introduce myself, but just a word about Sweden Bio, which is the organization that I'm the CEO of, and we gather some 300 member companies ranging from small biotechs to big pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer and AstraZeneca. And these topics that I'm going to talk to you about here today are, of course, of critical importance to our member companies. Next slide, please. So first and foremost, why is it important to connect internationally? Well, I've heard from previous speakers, this has been touched upon already. It comes naturally, of course, that if your market at the end of the day is global, then of course you need to think global from day one. So I saw that, for instance, Torsten brought this up, and I couldn't agree more. It's crucial to understand the environment in which you will eventually need to attain market access or reach out for funding or expertise, etc. So it's something that should be on every life science company's mind from the very start. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight a couple of regions, countries in the Nordics, which I believe are front runners when it comes to the local ecosystem and really making the most of that. And those front runners, maybe they're not the ones you would expect. I would like to highlight Iceland, for instance. Their scientific boards are to a high degree connected to top US universities. And probably a reason for that is that it's, of course, a very small country. So it's a necessity for them to reach out, and they also often do their PhD or postdocs in universities around the world, and in particular in the US. And then they come back and take these connections with them, so that in their scientific boards, they really have the best of the best. And I think that we, the rest of the Nordics, not least Sweden, and in particular those of us who are based in Stockholm, we need to be as extrovert as Iceland, because we are also very small, but maybe we are not realizing that we are too small. So I think that's an interesting example. I would also like to highlight Umeå and their ecosystem in northern Sweden. They are pros when it comes to supporting their companies in thinking internationally from day one. And during this COVID situation that we are in now, something interesting emerged when it came to Umeå and also some other regions, which are normally not close to Stockholm. And one individual in Umeå told me that they are used to being at a distance, which means that they are already very skilled in working with digital instruments to connect with, of course, Stockholm, but also the rest of the world. So these are a couple of the regions that I would like to highlight. And this is based on like interviews and meetings that I've had, so it's also a personal opinion. But we did do some research, and we have some data on how at least Swedish life science companies connect internationally. So if we look at the next slide, this is the report that we published earlier this year. It outlines the entire Swedish drug discovery and development pipeline. And one of the reasons that we do this is that we feel as an industry organization that in order to promote Swedish life sciences internationally and be heard about the strengths that we have, we need to be able to claim this based on solid metrics. So we did a very thorough mapping of this pipeline of ours. Of course, life sciences is much more than drug development, but this is one segment which is strong in our ecosystem. So if we look at next slide, please. Oops, I think yeah, okay, sorry. I thought I had another one in between, but that's fine. So we got from this report very interesting information about how the companies connect internationally. So, for instance, 90% of them buy R&D related services from abroad, and 87% have collaborations, formal collaborations with science groups or companies, and half of them already have attained international investors. And actually, when we send out this survey to get this data, we were stunned to see that 100% of the companies replied that they had one or several of these formal international collaborations ongoing already. So this is quite fresh data that we know for sure that this is the picture. And we also did this kind of report a couple of years ago, and we do see a progress in terms of business savviness and how mature the pipeline is becoming. So I think that those are connected. The outreach, the international outreach, as well as the progress of the pipeline. So next slide, please. Yes, so this is the data that we collected, and we went into a pretty detailed level. So we have information ranging from indication, type of compound, company, and where to find them, how to get in contact with them. So at the far right, you see that we have business region as well as organizations mentioned. Business region Göteborg, Invest in Skåne, Invest Stockholm, who are our regional investment promotion agencies. So those are the ones that international actors could turn to unless they contact the company directly to facilitate getting in contact with Swedish companies. And we distribute this information. So this is just a screenshot from a part of the report, but it's quite extensive. And we distribute this in international hotspots around the world with the help of Business Sweden. And we find it highly useful to have this kind of detailed data in order to attract information, the interest from abroad to what is going on in Sweden. So we can move to the next slide, please. And apart from being like a catalog to the world out there who are interested in getting in contact with our companies, it also gives us very useful information about what therapeutical areas that are our most important ones. And from this slide, you can see that we have, for instance, oncology, neurology, infection, and metabolic diseases as the top therapeutical areas in our pipeline. And actually these four together add up to 60% of our pipeline. And having that kind of information is also very helpful. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. Where I have put down the 3 most important areas of strengths in the Swedish life science drug pipeline. And those are cell and gene therapy, it's drug delivery, and rare diseases. And the reason why we like to structure it like this is it's not just for our own sake, it's also to be able to map on an international level to look at where can we find hotspots, life science hotspots, that align with our areas of strength. Because that's probably where we should focus our efforts as an industry organization to try to connect with their local ecosystem. And that is exactly what we did last week. So next slide, please. We brought together a bunch of companies. We selected them and we did a quite thorough job at looking into where are their areas of strength. And then we did the same thing on the Californian side. So we connected with our sister organization in California, which is called Biocom, but also with a number of other organizations, including the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce and AmCham, and we had the embassies on board, the embassy to Sweden, as well as the Swedish embassy to the US. And together we brought this group of companies and investors together. So we sort of did a matchmaking in advance, and then we just let them network in smaller groups, along with some presentations. And personally, I like this approach that you don't just knock on all the doors out there, but you have done your homework in advance, where you can say that, hey, California, we know that you're really strong in these areas, and it seems that we have the same areas of strength. And that's a very good basis for a long-term collaboration. So it's not just a one-off. And we can move on to the next slide, please. So this looks like someone playing Minecraft, which it's not. It's supposed to look like Sweden, and you can see that we have 4 hotspots when it comes to the drug discovery and development pipeline. If we add diagnostics and some other areas as well, you would find Linköping emerging as well. But these 4 hotspots in drug development are all very active in connecting internationally. Are increasingly connecting with each other in collaboration to make sure that Sweden is visible on an international level, not just as Umeå over there or Gothenburg over there, but actually achieving a critical mass. And that is so important because the eyes of those that we want to get attention from, international investors and companies that we would wish come to Sweden to establish their something here or connect in research collaborations, they will not detect areas that are too small. Like they don't have the laser eyes to see what is going on in a small section of the Swedish ecosystem. We need to come together as a country in order to be visible. And also, I would say, just coming together as the Swedish life science ecosystem, that's not enough. So that's why we are deeply and genuinely engaged in the ambition to promote all of the Nordics as a life science region. So we can move to the next slide. So I'm again so happy to be invited to talk about these things, and I know that the life science cluster with Hanne Mette are as genuinely passionate about these matters that I am. And in fact, we have this Nordic Life Science Consortium, which brings together all 5 countries, their promotion agencies and organizations such as Sweden Bio, industry organizations, as well as some regional investment promotion agencies. And taken together, we are the Nordic Life Science Consortium, and it's led from Norway. It's led by the Life Science Cluster. So we can look at the next slide. I'm not sure whether you have reflected on this, but I don't know where else in the world you would find 5 neighboring countries which all excel in the same industrial field and the same academic field. Because for all of these 5 countries, we are centers of excellence in different parts of life sciences, and we complete each other in a very nice way. So for instance, Finland, they are world champions when it comes to health data. They are very intelligent in using that in a good way. Norway, I'd like to highlight oncology as well as blue biotech. And Sweden, I think that we have a high innovative power and quite strong ecosystem surrounding our companies. Iceland, really, really cool blue biotech. And Denmark, I must give it to them. They are very, very advanced when it comes to attracting clinical trials to Denmark and facilitating that. So we have our different strong strengths, but taken together, we are a very important life science region. And we need to have the confidence to see that and to talk about it. So we can move on to the next slide, which is one occasion where we did just that. So I know this picture is not high resolution, but I still like it very much because it's a group of all those organizations that I just mentioned, with the Nordic Consortium coming together at the world's largest life science partnering meeting, which is BIO in the US. And this picture was taken when we brought everyone together for a joint Nordic pavilion in Philadelphia. So we did not have the biggest pavilion like Thailand or Brazil. They had its amazing big pavilions, but we had content. We had really good content. And the beauty of having all these 5 Nordic countries together and with this nice brand, the Nordics, that's, I mean, we already have it. We already have such a strong brand, so we better make use of it. And this was really a success. Some 80 companies joined to take part in this event, and we know from our members that a lot of good stuff came out of it. We can jump to next slide, please. So this is another example we already do collaborate with our Nordic sister organizations and different organizations in the Nordics, but where I believe that we could actually move even further in terms of collaboration. And that is my ambition for the future, to truly make Nordic Life Science Days a platform where all of the Nordics and our partners can use this window to the rest of the world to showcase Nordic life sciences. And normally there are around 1,300 delegates from 40 countries. We have close to 3,000 partnering meetings over the course of just a few days, so it's very intense. And of course, next time when it's going to run in April, this will be digital. So we are actually expecting that we will have much more delegates because the interest is already very high to take part in these kind of high quality partnering meetings. And if you want to check it out, just go into this website, nlsdays.com. And for this event in April, we are also trying something new, which is in line with what I just said about how our ambition is to really make this like a joint platform for the Nordic Consortium. So if we look at next slide, I put down a couple of screenshots. Of course, you'll find better information if you actually go into the websites, but I wanted to show on the left-hand side, you have the logos of a number of organizations. All of the Nordics are represented. And these are the organizations that together constitute the program committee, or a jury, if you will, for something that we call MLS Invest. So it's the Nordic Life Science Invest. And that's a pre-event which is dedicated explicitly to making sure that the best of the best on the company side meets the best of the best on the investor side. So there's a very high focus on investment in this pre-event. And we have this application procedure where any company in the Nordics can send in their application. It's quite easy. And then what happens is that we have this group of organizations that will go through them, and we select 60 companies that will be able to take part for free, both in MLS Invest pre-event, but also at Nordic Life Science Days. And what I think is the biggest value in this is not just finding really good Nordic companies that can go into the Olympics of life sciences with their flag, representing Norway and Finland, etc. But a huge value that we aim to create here is that we put as much energy into looking into the investor side, so that we make sure that we really have intelligent capital on site. And when I say intelligent capital, what I mean is that, and you probably all know this, but I mean, finding funding, it's not just about finding a bag of money. It's just as much about having that competent actor who can support you along the way, who can give advice, who can also ask those tough questions. And that's what I mean by intelligent capital. And we want to make sure that our treasury, in terms of this Nordic life sciences, our innovative power, really gets the support of the best on the investment side. So we have a database of some 600, I think it's close to 700 investors now, and we select those that we think should be introduced to these companies. We can move on to next slide, please. So I'd like to say a few words about the importance of the ecosystem surrounding the life science industry in Sweden. And of course, that goes for all of the Nordics. And in Sweden, we have a lot of support from decision makers in the sense that the government and our important actors, they have always said very clearly that life sciences is on the top of their agenda. It's a prioritized area. Government that currently takes office. The current one says that it's one of 4 strategic areas, along with digital transformation and climate change and lifelong learning. And having that so clearly stated from the government, it helps us as an industry organization in our international connections, because we can show that there's a solid commitment in the society and from decision makers that they see that this industry is really important. And of course, there's a connection to the fact that it actually accounts for 8 to 10% of our net export. And I believe that Norway have amazing possibilities to do even more of that fantastic life science sector of yours. But I also know from our sister organizations in Norway that you have several traditional industries that take a lot of the attention. And I think that this is the future. Of course, I'm biased, but there are so many excellent things going on, and they deserve the best possible context. So I see that I'm probably running out of time, and I think that this was maybe my last slide. One more. By this slide, I just wanted to show that we have so many things in common in terms of basic pillars that are actually very, very important when big international life science companies out there are browsing through the world to see where should they do establishments in manufacturing. Of course, these are establishments which create lots of jobs, the pillars that are important in this assessment that they do, you can see them here: access to a skilled workforce and helpful authorities, etc. It's quite basic stuff. We are good at it and you are good at it. So this is something where I think we could have more collaboration, particularly between Sweden and Norway in the future in life sciences. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like that. Thanks a lot, Lena. The next speaker is from SINTEF. Håvard Sletta is the research manager of Group Biotechnology, Department of Biotechnology and Nanomedicine at SINTEF Industry. He has been working with industrial biotechnology and process development for industry for 30 years. He is the project manager and coordinator for national and international R&D projects, including the recently started SFI, Industrial Biotechnology. Håvard is in the strategic board of the Life Science Cluster. We look forward to your talk, future-oriented industrial production, how to give Norway a prominent position in the growing global competition.
Thank you, Lotte. Do you all hear and see me? So it's okay?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank the Life Science Cluster and Hanne Mette. You do a really great job, even in this difficult Corona time. I'm also grateful to have the opportunity to present here today. So I will not be able to answer this question. I can say that immediately, but I will pick some topics where we are involved from the SINTEF side, where I think we could contribute to this at least. So next slide, please. So I will talk about this SFI, Industrial Biotech, that is about to start now. I will also talk about seaweed, and I would say a few words about future medicine and the things we are involved in there. So next slide. The SFI has a focus process lines. One is on microbial fermentation, and the other one is on processing of biomass. And in the SFI, we will focus on some specific products, that is food and feed ingredients, nutraceuticals, biopolymers, fish vaccines, and also microbial produced biopharmaceuticals, some selected. So important focus in this SFI is the industrial enzymes, and because these industrial enzymes, they go also into the processing plants. So this is the lower picture is from Norelia's Bioco plant, as Maria talked about earlier today, and the outcome of this processing plants is also like food and feed ingredients, nutraceuticals, and then also some biopolymers, biochemicals. So these platforms, they are interlinked, because some of the products that you make from the processing of biomass could go into microbial fermentations, and also the other way around. So and also all these processes are high-tech biotechnological processes that need to be developed for each single product you want to take out of it. So that is sort of the baseline for SFI. So if you next, please. So what is this SFI? It's a large national initiative, large project, has a 8-year lifespan, 250 million Norwegian crowns, and it consists of SINTEF, NORS, NTNU, and NMBU on the research organization side. Then we have 14 industry partners who are well aligned along these value chains that we focus on, and we also have one industry cluster, the AIDE cluster, involved in this SFI. I will not go through all the details about all the companies. I will come back to that in a later presentation, I hope. But we can say that all these industry partners have clearly defined innovation needs. And also interesting here that 10 of the partners have full-scale production facilities, and that is really important. And I also think that we can say that the 4 involved research organizations have at least among the national leading industrial biotech infrastructure platforms available for the consortium. So in addition to innovation, of course, the education part of an SFI is really important. And then we will, by the end of this project, have 19 PhD postdocs that has been involved in the SFI, and hopefully will go out in the industry to continue their work. So next slide. A bit more on the SFI. We say a few words about national and important underutilized or partly utilized feedstocks. Looking at the Norwegian landscape, the fisheries and aquaculture, they produce a lot of fish and salmon, but they also produce a lot of residual biomass. It's approximately 0.9 million tons per year. Going to the meat production in Norway, it also contributes with 0.35 million tons of residual biomass per year. The Norwegian seaweed, I will come back to the seaweed later. At the moment, it produces approximately 200,000 tons of biomass per year. But also then you have at the right end the gaseous feedstocks that are very much highlighted these days. Just looking at the industrial off-gas in Norway, you have 6 sites, the 6 biggest sites in Norway. They all produce more than they release more than 500,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. This is not anything that could be targeted 100% by biotech, but because the main strategy is CCS to capture and store this. But of course, in the future, we hope that some of this carbon can be used for making products, and it's also part of the SFI. So what we say is there is a potential for increased value creation through development and new improved bioprocesses targeting new markets, and that's a common interest to all partners in the SFI. I will talk much more about the SFI later, but because we have the kickoff 4th of December, so we haven't produced much yet. So one of the target areas is the aquaculture feed, and just as an example to think about, it's produced and used approximately 1.7 million tons annually in Norway, and it's also a future natural growth is dependent on new sustainable feed resources and also excellent fish health. I want to again stress the presentation from PHARMAQ earlier today. I think that the vaccine development in Norway is one of the most underreported success stories in Norwegian biotech. It's not only about PHARMAQ, but it's about sustainability and actually have one of the largest industries in Norway living, and without the fish vaccine, no aquaculture. So that's a fact. It's important to have in mind when you talk about Norwegian biotech. Okay, I will go to the next topics. We say a few words about seaweed. There's a lot of attention on seaweed this day, and I say that this is a national biomass with the industrial potential. We can go to the next slide. Globally, this is a huge industry. More than 30 million tons of macroalgae or seaweed are used industrially each year. So of this biomass, more than 95% is cultivated, it's not harvested, it's cultivated. Like you see on the picture on the left, this is from Seaweed Solutions Sea Farm for cultivating of seaweed outside Frøya in Trøndelag. But nationally, this is still a very small industry, approximately 200,000 tons per year. This is mainly harvested and mainly used for alginate production by DuPont. But it's a very large interest in boosting also the seaweed aquaculture in Norway. If you can produce approximately 20 million tons of macroalgae on an area in a similar size of the Trondheimsfjord. So that is just to put this in some kind of perspective. So if you go to the next slide, I think that we should work on this in Norway because we have the opportunity to develop this as a new large industry. We have this long coastline. We have large available areas for cultivation. The conditions are excellent for cultivation of brown algae, and it's also a fact that we have an extensive knowledge in development of sea-based industries from all the other offshore industries that we have been involved in. There's also a strong national community focusing on marine innovations in Norway. So seaweed has, next one please. So why isn't this happening already? That is because the seaweed aquaculture is not, this is a very young industry in Norway. So we have to focus on the whole value chain, starting from the breeding, from automatization of the cultivation and the harvesting, and also you need to focus on the biorefinery and also the product development of this Nordic species. That is really important. So the market opportunities are not very big at the moment because the production cost is far too high. So this is sort of where we are. So it needs a lot of science to close some of these gaps, but there's also a lot of initiatives going on that stage. So the next one, next slide, please. So what can you use this seaweed for? I will give some examples based on running. That was too quick. Back. So we give some examples of what you can use the seaweed for through some of the project that is running where we are involved. So we have the Norwegian Seaweed Biorefinery platform that we've been running for 1 year now. It's a collaborative project between NTNU, who's lead this initiative, been working with seaweed for 60 years. SINTEF, Nofima, Møreforskning, and NMBU. So this is also a joint effort to sort of boost this biorefinery part of the seaweed pipeline. We have several projects running. We are very much focused on applications. So we have one project starting now with Orkla on food ingredients. That is important for the seaweed industry because the food applications are the low-hanging fruits. And we have also a project on feed ingredients, this Sea Solution project that is a aeronet project. We have a long tradition of working with seaweed for biomaterials and the seaweed biopolymers and biomaterials. That is a long tradition in NTNU and SINTEF. And we have several projects also on this field. One interesting one, starting making plastics from macroalgae. and another one where we look at the high value applications of the very, very interesting biopolymers that you find in these seaweeds. We also have project on medical use, human and veterinary. It's a long story. So our departments are involved in 5 ongoing IPN projects here, and we have 2 new that starts in 2021. So I will give 2 examples of this kind of projects. So next slide, please. So we have been working with this Vital company, Norwegian company, since they started in 2003. With developing products for controlled release of sperm cell in artificial insemination of cattle. And this is an alginate-based, biopolymer-based product where you can actually get high-quality product that is very, very commonly used these days. So they produce this product and market it in 19 countries, and it is patented in more than 40 countries. So this is a small Norwegian success story based on Norwegian seaweed. So the next example, just use Algae Pharma. We are also one of the companies we have been working with since they started in 2006. So they are working also with alginate-based drugs, working with these oligosaccharides that are they discovered several years ago that they could disrupt microbial biofilms. This is really important in treatment of patients, and it's also shown that these oligomers can release mucus plugs and normalize mucus rheology. And this is really, really important in a clinical setting. So they are now in phase 2B with their first product, focusing on treatment of cystic fibrosis patients. So that was just 2 examples, and we can move on because this takes me to the next topic, future medicine and the national opportunities. We have heard a lot about that already today. I will just mention a few words what we work with in SINTEF. This is part of a really important strategic area from health and well-being in SINTEF, where we have several topics, but I will focus mainly on this future medicine part of it. So we know that the health industry, they already export for more than 20 billions per year. So a question that asked by many these days, what is the requirements for future development of the pharmaceutical vaccine industry in Norway? This has been also addressed several times earlier today, and we will hear more about it later also. And I think that there start to be a common understanding that this is an industry with a large potential for growth in Norway. So next slide. So what we see from the SINTEF side, also everyone else, is that there is a shift in treatments. So you have the traditional one, the normal APE production, one drug for a lot of patients. That will be important forever. But we also see that there's a lot of new treatments coming up where the patient information diagnostics is much more important for what kind of treatment the patient should get. And it also goes in the direction of more individual drugs and doses. And I think this has also opened up new opportunities for Norwegian biopharmaceuticals because it's still a lot to do, and there's a lot of companies and research communities in Norway working high level on this already. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to have a position here. So next one, please. Yes, say a few words about where we are in this landscape from our department. Next slide. So we have worked with this for many years. So in our department, we are approximately 80 projects now running this year within this medical applications in a broad sense. The distribution is interesting because a bit more than 40% is industry-owned projects. So they own all the results, and that's where you want to be, because we want to support industry. And then we have 25% approximately is a European project, several of those also in collaboration with industry. This is extremely important for us to build competence. So the international part of our activity is extremely important to build competence. Then we have approximately 20% that is standard research projects from the Research Council of Norway, these kind of things. That is also important. And we also have a small part of strategic project. We don't have much basic grants, but we use them for strategic projects in SINTEF. So next one. Just a topic of some of this strategic project, we try to put them in a direction where we can see that it will be in market needs for the future, because we also need to adapt to the markets and the requirements from our customers. So right now we have a project, internal large one on immunotherapy. We have on therapeutic mRNA from design to in vivo. We also have a large one on sick gut, on research on intestinal microbiota, and we have a lot of small projects supporting development of new screening methods and production technologies. And we also have one running right now on biomaterials for drug delivery. So that is just to show some of this project. So next, please. Next one, please. So how do we work? Yeah, okay. So bit crowded. I will go through it fast. So we have we use no back. We build the competence to this European and basic and project and internal project, and we try to use this to solve challenges for the and develop processes for industry. So that is the main goal for SINTEF. So we work along the whole value chain, I would say, from bioprospecting, new drug leads, through screening, process development, characterization, and formulation. Some of the industrial partners you can see below, some of them have been privileged enough to work with for many, many years, like Celia for 30 years. We have been with PHARMAQ since they was Alpharma, and we also have sort of a very good customers, starting from startup companies to established industry, also international industry. So next one. Infrastructure is everything for us. We need to have labs and methods and technology that are useful in the project. So we have been building up all our lab facilities to support all these industries. So we have tools for sequencing, for high throughput screening, for fermentation process development in all different scales, and a lot of characterization tools, large mass spec laboratory, large cell-based assay laboratory. Also for the nanomedicine, that is an important and growing field for us. We work also through the whole line from formulation and making particles, the polymer chemistry, up to characterization, to in vitro tox and efficacy, and all the way up to preclinical testing, where we at least have some methods, and it's a growing activity for us, the animal models as well. So infrastructure is extremely important. So next one. This is just an example. We have a lot of established assays. So we try to develop sort of generic technology and competence platforms that can be used for a lot of different projects. That's how we work. So this is just an overview of the cell-based high throughput assay that we have established in our screening lab. We also have other similar platforms available, but I will not go through that today. So just an example. Last slide. Yeah, I'll try to have some concluding remarks. What to say is industrial biotech will be important for development of our future bioeconomy. I think that is recognized by everyone, and also in Norway. And I think that Norway has the opportunity to future develop and increase the volume and the value of the national biopharmaceutical industry. I think we have a lot of support of that today. Key factors for this development is the availability of leading research groups, universities and institutes, key infrastructure platforms, and long-term strategies and commitments from the government and funding agencies. This is on both national and European level. To support both R&D and also the industry is really important now that there's even better position to support industry. So that is important. International collaboration, it mentioned from several already, is extremely important if you want to develop something in Norway. And also the last point, all examples given in this presentation are projects where collaboration is the key factor for success. National coordination and a collaborative project is sort of the key for everything. So thank you. Was the last.
Thank you, Håvard. Very interesting. Now we have come to the most frequently mentioned company here today. Agnete Fredriksen is co-founder, president, and chief scientific officer of Vaccibody, probably the most spoken of startup this fall as well, as they entered into a collaboration agreement with Genentech. Agnete is an inventor of several patents and will now take us through the journey from idea to clinical development into business. The title of the talk is Science to Business, Vaccibody as a Case. We look forward to hearing you, Agnete.
Thank you, Lotte. So next slide, please. So yeah, I will try to guide you through the journey of Vaccibody and where we started and where we are now and which steps we've taken and what I think has been important learnings and success factors and failures over the years. So we started Vaccibody. I started my PhD thesis in Bjarne Bogen's group here at the Rikshospitalet back in 2002. So it's a long time ago. Inger Sandli was my professor leading the research group where I did my master thesis and was also involved then in my PhD thesis. So it's the three of us that are inventors of the Vaccibody technology that we started back in 2002. Next slide, please. So quick move forward. So today, Vaccibody is a clinical stage immunotherapy company with a market cap of 1.5 billion euros. We envision ourselves to be a company with a leading vaccine platform technology, and the uniqueness of this claim is that we, with our technology, are targeting antigens to antigen-presenting cells that generate both unique, rapid, strong, and broad, and long-lasting immune responses. And we are currently developing products within cancer and infectious diseases. We have two products that we have taken into the clinic so far, which is VB1016, and which is a therapeutic HPV vaccine, and also VB10neo, which is a fully individualized neoantigen cancer vaccine where we make one vaccine per patient. We recently then, as you mentioned, announced a global collaboration and license agreement with Genentech that's focused on the individualized neoantigen cancer vaccine, VB10neo. Next slide, please. So this has been a long journey. We, back in 2003, submitted the first core patent. That was a time where there was extremely little focus on commercializations and patents and IP. So this didn't cross my mind at all before someone told me a couple of weeks before I was supposed to present at the conference in Canada that maybe it would be a good idea to investigate whether there should be a patent application filed before this was presented publicly, meaning that we had approximately, I think, 10 days to write the patent application. That was the first patent application that I've ever looked into. So crazy now to know that our company is still really dependent on this core patent that we submitted with bad timing back in 2003. It was not highly focused on moving this forward into commercialization or product development during my PhD thesis. So in 2007, which was the same year as I defended my thesis, is when the company was founded and with very, very little funding. So we had micro funding. I took on the role as CSO as a 20% position, in addition to 100% postdoc position at Rikshospitalet. And that lasted for quite a few years. So we had up until 2011 is where we actually started the first development program, which is VB1016. And those days before that, so basically between 2003 and 2011, eating a lot of years from the patent life, we did not really engage in product development. But that was the time where we then also established our own lab, and I decided to dare to take on 100% CSO position. But in 2014, that was the first time we actually raised some significant funding. Until 2014, we survived on loans and 1 or 2 million NOK that could help us do the research that we needed for a few months ahead in time. In 2014, we raised 35 million NOK, initiated then the first clinical trial, and started to professionalize the company and got on board and the first Danish CEO that had previous experience from multiple biotech companies. And quite simultaneously, we then really started to look into the next product and what's the uniqueness of our technology that can be applied broadly. Where should we go to really show that we had something to offer to the market that no one else could offer? And that ended up with us being a company at that time point being approximately 6 people, and then taking on the very ambitious project of developing one vaccine per patient, fully individualized neoantigen cancer vaccines on our platform technology. That led us to be able to raise 220 million NOK, and we were quite rapid moving into the clinic in 2015 with that first clinical trial. And then same year, we announced a clinical collaboration with Nektar Therapeutics, at that time point, one of the most popular biotech companies based in San Francisco. And also, we are able to attract clinical collaboration with Roche on our VB1016 program. We raised 230 million NOK, and in 2019, approximately a year ago, we changed the management, further professionalization, and got on board a second Danish CEO that had more experience with the later stage development of the companies. This year, with all the clinical data that we've generated and increasing comfort in the platform, we launched an additional focus on infectious disease vaccines and initiated a clinical trial in cervical cancer. And then, very important for Vaccibody, announced that we were able to attract and finalize this collaboration and licensing deal with Genentech Roche, which gives us just in upfront and near-term payment $200 million US dollars. And we are now in the process, and we have launched some thoughts about the new ambitious strategy. So a long journey, multiple years with very minimal activities and funding, but now it's sort of all exploding. Next slide, please. This also goes to employees. Should have taken it even further back, but we were between maximum 6 people for a very long period of time. And you can see how it now increases, and we are now almost 50 people and plan to almost double that. We've doubled that throughout the last year, and plan to continue to expand with the number of employees to be able to take on all these new ambitious projects that we think we can develop with our platform technology. Next slide, please. So drug development, I think I looked at this slide many years ago and got kind of depressed because it is the truth. There are so many compounds in drug research and few of those that enter into really preclinical development as promising products, and few of those again into clinical trials to really get one drug approved by health authorities. There's been 10,000 test compounds in drug research and billions of euros used. So you have to prepare that your product will not reach it to the market, and be very selective on which products that you move forward into clinical trials. Next slide, please. So there's this hype cycle also of emerging technologies that I think is really interesting, and maybe particularly, next slide or next click, please. To Vaccibody, so we have a DNA plasmid vaccine, and we are working within cancer immunotherapy, and then even further we are working also then within fully personalized cancer neoantigen vaccine development. So it's pretty normal with this hype cycle that you have a new technology and it sounds very interesting, and then you meet reality, and then it sort of declines all the interest around this before potentially, if it is successful, you can reach this plateau of productivity. I think with a Vaccibody, when we started, DNA vaccines had already passed that first peak, and we were really in the sort of at the bottom of the interest in the world for genetically based vaccines. You can see now these days with Moderna and BioNTech, etc., with genetic based vaccines, this is really now a hot area again. I think cancer immunotherapy also had not been able to have any good results until 2011, when cancer immunotherapy really had its breakthrough, and with the fully personalized cancer neoantigen vaccines as well, it had a peak, when we see now that Vaccibody is basically being very lucky with the tough start, being really at the wrong place when it comes to what people in the world believed would be the next ideal therapy. I think now having a naked DNA plasmid vaccine working in cancer immunotherapy and working with the fully personalized medicine